speaking. In today's video, I'll be basically doing a herb walk. I want to share with you the ancient way of learning how to determine the medicinal use of a herb. How do you know the medicinal use of a herb? How did our ancestors determine the medicinal use of a herb? And I want to go into that, and I want to walk with you. It's going to be an interactive encounter, because I'm going to show you how to get you involved. I don't know who is on. I see two persons on. Could you go ahead and just share this live with somebody? Today's lesson is going to be a very interesting one, because how medicinal herbs are taught today, or herbal medicine is taught today, is very different from how herbal medicine was taught by our ancestors. Hey, Leslie, good. All right, go ahead, Leslie, and just share this with some persons. I'm going to share with you, I'm going to just give you some background as to how I learned about herbs and why I teach herbs the way I do it, very differently from how it is taught. Now, we live in a fast-paced society now where most times we are disconnected from nature. So that's number one. We are disconnected from nature. I made a decision, my wife and I, we made a decision to reconnect with nature. So right now, I'm doing this video from our home, Kibbutz Kahai, which is Village of Life. It's an eco village. Hey, Hugh Roberts, you're doing? Send this to somebody. I'm gonna be sharing some good stuff today. I'm gonna share it. I'm gonna be sharing how to actually know the medicinal use of a herb with very little knowledge. How you can know how to use a herb by just interacting with it, just seeing it. So as I was saying, that how herbal medicine is taught today is that you pretty much just get the textbooks and you are taught a whole bunch of herbs, and basically that is the way it is taught. So a lot of times you go to school and you are given, that is what I was taught. I went to Sandy Hill Institute of Natural Medicine, and this is how my journey began. So I was given a whole list of herbs, and I was given formulation, and that's good, because it helped me only so much, but it couldn't bring me to where I really wanted to be. The second thing, the second most important thing with that, the challenge that I had with that, is most of these herbs that I learned about, they were dried herbs. I didn't know how to identify these herbs if I saw them. And to add to that, a lot of these herbs were not in the locale that I was in. They weren't in Jamaica. I had to import them. And this may be true for you. Hey, Hagley, how you doing? All right, so a lot of herbs, basically, and you may be in a part of the world where, depending on how you were taught herbs, in a way where you would have to import those herbs, because the raw material that you were taught to use did not grow in your locale. And as I began to practice, I had some serious issues with that, because I began to realize that herbs grow in environment that is conducive to it. Not only that, but the diseases that are unique to a particular individual or to persons, the solution is obtained from the herbs that grow in their surrounding. Which is why in this episode of Herbalist Speaking, what I'm doing, come January, I'll be, the minute I live here, it's a vast property. What I'm actually doing is I'm actually taking an inventory of all the herbs that are around me. So in other words, this is the pharmacare. This is the pharmacy that I have to work with if I get sick, or if anybody here gets sick. So it makes sense that I need to be knowledgeable of the herbs that are in my locale. And so what I want to do is I want to use the opportunity to help you to identify the herbs in your area. So I want to show you how to know the medicinal uses of the herbs that are around you. So if you're in Trinidad, what I'm going to be sharing with you will allow you to learn to know the use where you are. If you're in Barbados, if you're in Canada, if you're in Africa, if you're in Ethiopia, wherever you are in the world, the herbs that are present around you represent the solution to the diseases that will manifest in that area. Because the Most High says that He gave us the herb for the healing of the nation. And so you'll see, and I always like to talk about Chinese medicine. You'll notice in Chinese medicine that a lot of the herbs that they use is unique to that geographical location. A lot of the herbs that they use in India is unique to that geographical location. So as their medicinal system develops, their medicinal system is based and hinged on the herb that is available to them. And so people didn't travel as widely and as extensively as we do now, because traveling is much more convenient, it's much more easier. And so with that, we saw a cross, what's the term now? We saw a crossing of diseases. So diseases that were not from Jamaica came to Jamaica from China as people began to travel from China. As people began to travel to America, diseases that weren't in America came with those travelers. And so sometimes the solution for those diseases, persons would have to refer to the herbs in the place of origin that they came from. Not meaning that there weren't herbs that could work, but the system wasn't developed to treat those diseases to some extent because the diseases was new to them. All right, and if you understand what I'm saying. So what I want to do, so my approach is teaching persons to identify the medicinal uses of the herbs around them. So that way you have access to what you can use. So from that standpoint, I decided to learn about Jamaican herbs because I'm from Jamaica, and the herbs in Jamaica are related to other herbs within the islands of Jamaica. Just like on the continent of Africa, you will find that the herbs in one country in Africa will be related to other country because they are the same continent, the same landmass. So that is what led me to push towards identifying the herbs in Jamaica, not only identifying them, but going beyond that to actually organize a system of how to use those herbs. All right. So that is one of my main goals. So let me just start out by saying that in order to identify or to learn how to use any particular herb, well, the first thing you have to do is you have to develop a respect for the herb. Now, when I started to learn herbs, because I said I started out with textbooks, so I was introduced to a long list of herbs. Number one, I didn't know how to identify those herbs. Number two, those herbs weren't available for the most part in my area. I further learned that a lot of them are here, but they have different names. But for the most part, those herbs weren't available to me, which also led me to the third point, that I didn't have a relationship with the herbs. Herbology is not something that is that you are disconnected from. As you begin to learn herbs, you're going to realize that in order to be a true practitioner of natural medicine and herbology, one has to develop a relationship, because in our ancestors who practiced herbs actually had a relationship with the herbs. They interacted with the herbs. And in learning about herbs and in learning the uses of medicinal herbs, you are going to have to some extent interact with the herbs. So one of the things that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be asking you, you're not here, I don't know where you are in the world, but I'm going to be showing you how, and it's going to involve you to interact with the herbs that is in your surrounding. So one of the things that you're going to have to learn to do is develop a mindset to taste. One of the ways that we interact with the herbs is seeing them. So when I studied herbology, the herbs were dry herbs. I didn't see them. I couldn't have a relationship with them because I didn't see them. I only saw the dried product or the powdered product coming to me. So it's difficult to learn how to use these herbs because the use is going to be limited to your experience or to their experience. All right. So if they said that this herb was a decongestant or it's good for cold, I had to go by what they told me because I didn't have a relationship for myself. And so that is not how we approach truth. How do I verify that this is what this herb do? How do I verify it? I have to just go by what you say. Now, I believe that all truths, every truth, if you gave me $100 bill, there is a test to validate its authenticity because there's counterfeit money. If you gave me a piece of metal and said this is gold, there's always a test to authenticate any truth. And so if I'm going to impart to you truths about herbs, then you have to be able to evaluate those truths about yourself. So that is the way I teach herbs. I teach herb in a way where you should be able to evaluate it for yourself. In the scripture, in the Torah, it says that the preachers should not only teach truth, but they should also teach persons how to discern truth for themselves. See, part of the problem is that we've been told what to do. We've been told that this is that, but we've never been able to interact with the truth for ourselves to know if that's true or not. All right. So, and a lot of what I'm saying is I go in depth in the course that I'm offering come January. I'm just so passionate. I'm so excited. I can't even wait until the course starts. Hence I just feel I'm bursting. So I'm using these platforms to just get the knowledge out. And it's sad because I've not seen many persons in Jamaica registering for the course. I've not seen many doctors. The way I'm teaching this course is not only from a traditional perspective, but I'm going to teach you how to know what are the chemicals, because even though this is rooted in traditional, it must be supported by sound science. So I'm not just teaching something that is traditional, I'm teaching herb in a way that is traditional but is supported by sound science. And so if the traditional observation was this, then I'm going to show you why the sound science backs it up, because in traditional knowledge they didn't have the tools of microscope, and they didn't have the laboratories that we have. So their experience was just limited to certain use of the senses. All right, it was based on the interaction, and it was based on the relationship. Again, we go back to relationship. It was based on the relationship that they had with the herbs. But then here comes along science, and it backs up what they're saying, because science is now able to identify the constituents. It's able to identify the chemicals that are responsible for certain reactions or certain experiences that our traditional healers had. All right, so I want to share with you how our ancient healers identified the medicinal usage of herbs. But in the course where I go more in depth, I'm going to share with you the pharmacology. I'm going to share with you the chemicals that were responsible for these experiences and why it verifies, or most of the time you will see why science is always substantiating the experiences that our ancestors have. So in today's video, that's what I want to share with you. So I'm actually going to go on a herb walk with you, and I'm going to share with you how to actually determine the medicinal uses of herbs and how our ancestors did that. So I'm just laying the groundwork. So I'm laying the groundwork as to why I had this approach, because very early when I learned herb, my wife used to say, "You love taste too much. You go poison. You soon, oh, you love taste too much. You're just so inquisitive." Because again, that's one of the natural tendencies of natural healers. They tend to be very inquisitive. So I'm always being told that I'm too inquisitive. So that's why the qualities that you need in order to be a natural healer, you have to have a natural ability to be inquisitive, to want to understand why this works and how this works, and not just what works. Yeah. So, a lot of time we ask the wrong question. What is good for that? What is good for that? So in the way natural medicine is taught now is this is how it is taught. This is what works. This is what works. This is what works. This is what works. But you have no way of verifying why it works. So guess what? When you are told what works and what works and what works, what happens is that you are always going to be dependent on the system that supplies you with what. If you don't understand why it works, the principles behind it, the operating principles behind it, then you are always going to be limited in knowledge. Yes, you're going to have some knowledge because, you know, sometimes you just need to know what works, what works, what works. But if you really want to be a true student of nature, you need to go beyond the what, and you need to begin to learn to know why. So I started out with a list of herbs. This is what works. This is what works. This is what works, and this is how this is what you formulate. But then I said I've never seen the herbs green. They weren't available where I was. There was no way for me to experience them, and so I was very limited. And so that is how modern herbology is taught. But this is not how it was taught. So you had a practicing person, a practicing healer, and that practicing healer would get an apprentice. And that apprentice that practicing healer would have the knowledge, and that practicing healer would guide that student through the experiences, providing them with the tools that they need in order to become competent. All right, so respect the herb. Now, a lot of persons, our traditional healers, they always approach the practice. They always approach their raw material. They always approach their herb with a certain level of respect. In our modern world, that doesn't make sense because to us, we don't even realize, because we don't interact, because we are disconnected from nature. We live in the industrialized, built-up world. So because we don't interact with nature, we don't understand that nature is also alive. Plants are alive. You know, we have reproductive parts. Plants have reproductive parts. We defend ourselves when we feel threatened. Plants defend themselves when they feel threatened. We manufacture in order to survive, and we are innovative and dynamic. Well, plants manufacture, they're innovative, they're dynamic. And so, just like how we respect animal life, we need to develop a respect for plant life. So one of the first thing that we have to do is we have to approach the raw material, the herb, with a level of respect. Now, here's where my respect for plants went through the roof. Now, in modern time, in allopathic medicine and in allopathic medicine or in Western medicine, a lot of the raw material that are used to make drugs were either extracted from plants or there are a synthesis of a plant compound. Now, in order to do that, they have to build multi-billion-dollar labs to carry out those functions. So, in order to make, for example, aspirin, salicylic acid, which is found in palm, in the willow bark, they have to create multi-billion-dollar labs and carry out extensive research and study and processes in order to make a drug. But in the plant carries out a greater process. A plant basically has what I call, it represents intelligence. The first thing, so I respect the plant because the plant has intelligence. The plant knows how to extract the mineral from the earth, how to formulate those minerals, how to convert those minerals, and how to manufacture compounds from the raw material in the earth. So the plant represents an intelligent lab far more superior than any lab that man can create. How can you, the simplest plant, The simplest plant that you see growing by the wayside represents far greater function, far greater capabilities than any lab that you can see in any first world country. Let me say that again. The simplest herb that you pass on the wayside represents far more capabilities than any multi-billion-dollar lab that you can see in any developed world. How can you not respect that plant? How can you not respect that plant? And so one of the reasons why we have to respect the plant is because the plant has carried out all of those functionalities, and in the end, it has made available to you a raw material that is going to help you. So our ancestors understood that very well. And so because of that, they approached the plant with a great level of respect. You know, if you look at a facility, if you look at any man-made facility that is meeting a need, that is carrying out such a capability, we would have immense respect for it. But we don't understand that the herbs that are around us represents a far greater capability, because the earth, the herbs is carrying out all of those functions simultaneously. It is carrying out those functions in a multiplicity. And you know what I love about herbs? Here's what I love about herbs. If you went to Pfizer or any one of these labs and removed any one of those critical equipment, it would shut that lab down. If you destroyed any one of those labs, it would take years to build it back so that it could go back to what it was doing. When you take a knife and cut down that plant, in a matter of months, the plant begins the process of regeneration and regenerating itself to carry on the function in less than a month, less than weeks, as if nothing was done to it. How can we not respect such an intelligent tool? And so I'm sharing that because I want us to approach herb with a different level of insight. I want us to understand that it is worthy of the respect that it deserves. And so because of that, we should seek to develop a relationship with it. So the second thing, so our ancestors respected herb. The second thing that they did, so before you even go into knowing the medicinal, because it's not about what you can get, it's about what we also can give. So before our ancestors went to take from the herbs, they went with a mindset to respect. I'm 23 minutes in the live because I want you to send this to somebody. I want you to send this video to somebody. In very shortly, I'm going to share with you the ancient way of learning how to determine the medicinal use of any herb. That's what I'm going to be doing. So I'm not just going to be here sitting and lecturing and talking. I'm going to go into that, but I'm making some time for us to get this out. Send this to Facebook, send this to, because it's important to get the knowledge out. So the traditional herb healers approach the herb with a level of respect. They understood, secondly, that they need to develop a relationship with herb. Well, why do you need to develop a relationship with herb? Because, as I said, herb protect themselves. If you approach herb in a disrespectful way that seeks to harm the herb will react by protecting itself. Because one of the features of living things is that not only do they produce, but they also seek to protect themselves. It's a natural instinct in any living thing. So if you approach a herb in a way to harm it, sometimes the essential minerals and nutrients and chemicals and medicine that you need, the herb will not make it available to you. Now, this may sound strange, but this is how herbs have been able to adapt, and this is how herbs have been able to remain relevant and to stay alive over the years. When we talk about we talk about pesticides, farmers will, for example, understand what I'm saying. When a farmer uses a particular chemical on a plant, they will sometimes say after a year or after a couple months, this chemical no longer works. Why doesn't the chemical work? Because the herb, in an effort to protect itself, the herb, because it's dynamic and because it's alive, it's able to change its constituents. It's able to change its basic constituents in order to stay alive. And so sometimes you may eat a vegetable and you may find that certain minerals or certain nutritive value of the herb is no longer available. It was because the herb was being abused by pesticides, so the herb had to find a way to live, to survive. So the herb, in turn, changed its herbal constituents. When you talk about herbicide, glyphosate or Roundup or these weedicides. You spray these weedicides on the herb, and in less than 9 months they don't work. Why? Because the herb realized it is coming under threat. So it evolves. It changes its chemical constituents in order to stay relevant. So rather than doing that, it's better to build a relationship with the herb. It's better to build a relationship with the herb. So when we build a relationship with the herb, not only is it more harmonious, but we also learn to communicate with the herb, which is where I'm going. In order to learn the medicinal uses of a herb, you have to learn how to communicate with the herb. And I know many of us think that communication is only verbal. Communication is not verbal, or not limited to verbal communication. We communicate through our 5 senses. We communicate through sight. We communicate through tasting. We communicate through smelling. There are many ways that we communicate. And I'll give you an example, and then I'm going to go into my presentation for today. I remember I was harvesting. Sometimes I don't get a chance to harvest herbs as I would want to. So I sometimes have to get persons and I have to train them. And I remember there was this one person that we had gotten. This was very early. And this person, even though I'd done the training, the person was just lazy. They didn't want to go because we actually harvest herbs, wild herbs, away from human interactions and toxins and so on and so forth. So this person was lazy. This person didn't want to go as far in the woods as they should go to get the herb. So they brought some herb to me. And when they brought the herb to me, I said, no, we can't take this herb because this herb is no good. This herb will not meet the needs for which I want it. And they were saying, how? Because they just see it as herb. I said, no, the herb is telling me that it doesn't have the property. So I can look on the leaf and I can look and see that the leaves are yellow. When this herb is healthy, the leaves are supposed to be dark green. I was saying, what? I was saying, yeah, this herb came off a soil this herb came off a marl soil, or what we would call limestone. This herb came off a soil that had too much limestone. So because there was too much limestone, the minerals that this particular herb needed, it's not in the herb. And then he just started to confess. And he said, yeah, how you know that? How do you know? I said, well, the herb told me that. And I began to show him. I said, if you look on the herb also, not only is there yellowing, but there's a lot of brown spot, which means that this herb was exposed to a lot of insects. And I was able to tell him also when he couldn't believe. I said, yeah, that is what happens when you interact with herbs. Now, if I had gotten that herb as a dried herb, I couldn't know that. If I had gotten that herb as a powder, I couldn't know that. And so I would have gotten the material, I would have followed my formulation, and I would not achieve my desired results simply because the raw material that the herb needed from the soil was not present in that particular soil. And so that is the reason why I'm doing this herb walk. That's why I'm doing what I'm going to be doing, because I want to show you how, and Mark, I don't want to go too deep, because I don't have handouts. I don't have something on the screen that I'm sharing with you, so you won't be able to follow to some extent. So I'm trying to present this material in a way that you can absorb it and that you can make sense of it. But I want to encourage, if you're watching this, as I said, we're offering a course, a diploma in Indigenous Caribbean medicine. It's not only for the lay person. If you know any doctor, any pharmacist, or anybody who is interested in herbs and want to practice herbs, then I would encourage you to send them this video, because this is not just going to be for the traditional person. This is also going to be for the scientific-based person. I know there are a lot of medical doctors and nurses who want to learn how to use herbs responsibly. I'm going to be teaching the traditional knowledge, but I'm also going to be supporting it by sound scientific knowledge, so that you have the both of best worlds in helping you to aid yourself or to aid your loved ones. So the last thing I'm going to say before I go into today's presentation is that I'm going to show you at the end of this video. I did say last week I gave, not the Sunday before, I gave an invitation to doing these virtual herb walks more regularly, and nobody took up the offer. I don't know if it is that nobody's interested, but I wanted to do these every Sunday. Every Sunday I basically go and harvest herbs, and I wanted to share that experience with you. So if you're interested, let me know. And I also wanted your input. One thing that I said in the last video, the last live that I did, you can check it, is that I'm setting up a greenhouse, and I've set it up. I want to show you. It's not only herbs that's important to me. Food is very important to me. So as I teach herbal knowledge, I also want to teach the importance of food. And so there is a myth that we have a food shortage. And especially in Jamaica, there's the teaching that we have a food shortage. And one of the reasons for that is because the system has decided what are the vegetables that we should consume. So there's cabbage, there's broccoli, there's kale, there's cauliflower, there's lettuce. And so when these foods are in short supply, because of who control them, then they say that there's a food shortage. But I want you to look around at the amount of greens. We don't have a food shortage. We have a manufactured food shortage. And so in the next decade or so, there are two things that are going to become more critical, and especially for Jamaica, there are two things that become critical. There's the access to medicine and the access to food. The access to medicine and the access to food are going to become two of the most critical challenges that as a society we have to deal with. The access to food and the access to medicine. Already we see where in parts of Africa, there are persons who have gone ahead and they have genetically modified food, and they have genetically modified food to the point where they have and the genetically modified food, that's the term, they have created a patent, that's the term. They have now patented food in such a way where they have gone into parts of the world, they have created deficiencies in the soil, deficiencies in the atmosphere to make it challenging for food to grow. And then what they have done is that they have created a solution for that, whereby they have now created seeds that you can plant, but you can only get one harvest from it. That is going to be a part of the global food control. And so food and medicine are going to become two of the most critical challenges that any society will have to deal with. And so part of the way of dealing with that is that we have to begin to go back like our ancestors. We have to begin to expand that list of what constitutes vegetable. So what I'm doing is I'm adding 12 wild vegetables to our domestic list. So I've created a greenhouse. All of what I'm doing here is without the help of government. I believe in empowering the people. So I'm not looking to any agency. I'm not looking to any person or anything basically to do what I'm doing. This is me doing what I can do to help my people. So I've created a greenhouse, and we basically did some composting because the soil to some extent is not that fertile. So I've created compost, and I want to put in those greenhouse 12 new vegetables. I want to introduce my people to 12 indigenous alkaline vegetables from the wild that you can add to that list of foods to dispel the myth of a food shortage. Now, I'm telling you that because I need your help. I'm asking you to contribute. In the last video that I did, I asked for the contribution. I didn't get any contribution. So I went in my own pocket and I bought all the raw material to build the greenhouse. Now I want to build more greenhouse. And I want you to help. It cost me 10,000 Jamaican dollars because I use pipes to build the greenhouse. It's not yet finished because I need the shade covering. So I want you to, just to contribute. And in return, I'm going to be walking you through the journey of identifying those alkaline indigenous vegetables. And I want to walk with you, and I want you to share with me as together we develop that greenhouse. And then what I want to do is I want to now bring those vegetables in through my clinics. I want to now recommend effort to increase the array and the choice of vegetables that we now have. This is my contribution in helping to decrease food shortage. All right, so in a little while, I'm going to share with you how what I've done so far and how you can help. All right, so let's go into today's lesson. As I said, I want to share with you the ancient way of learning how to determine the medicinal use of a herb. How did our ancestors develop that? So as I said, we want to start with a preconceived mindset of one, respecting the herb, two, seeking to build a relationship with the herb, and then three, seeking to understand how to communicate with the herb. Because when you learn now how to communicate with the herb, then the herb is going to tell you what its healing benefits are. All right. So let's go into that. Now, as we talk about herbs, we're talking about the five senses, and as I said to you, I'm not going to overwhelm you. I'm not going to overwhelm you with information because I know I tend to do that a lot. So I'm trying my utmost best not to overwhelm you, because I lose the goal of communicating to you what is it I want to communicate. All right. So I'm going to try to do this in a timely way. Now, in order to understand how to determine the medicinal uses of a herb, there are different principles that are used. So there are different principles that are used. You can use sight, and there's actually what is called the Doctrine of Signature. The Doctrine of Signature states that plants communicate to us certain healing properties that it has based on certain shape of the part of the plant. For example, the duck flower. If you look at the duck flower, it looks like the gastrointestinal tract. And the duck flower is an emetic. So if you take it, it will allow you to vomit and to detoxify yourself. So the Doctrine of Signature says that plants communicate through us by sight some of the healing properties or qualities that it has. Another example is color, yellow. Nearly all plants that produce a yellow flower is good for the urinary tract system. Because if you look at your urine, it's yellow. Nearly all plants. Now, you can take that knowledge. Now, everything that I'm saying, to every truth, there is always exceptions. To every norm, there's always an exception. But in general, these are general guidelines. So if you look at, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at King of the Forest, Cassia alata, which has bright yellow flowers. And King of the Forest is used predominantly as a purgative. It benefits the liver. But I'm using my sight and I'm communicating. Let me just show you. Hold on. Let me show you. Oops. Because I'm here. I'm doing this virtually, but I have to find a way to communicate with you as best as possible. So I'm going to interact with my Cassia Alata, king of the forest. So this is my king of the forest. All right? This is the king of the forest. Now, the doctrine of signature states that nearly all flowers, all plants that produce a yellow flower is good for the urinary tract system. So it's good for kidney stone, gallstone, kidney cysts, bladder infection, urinary tract infection, all of those complaints. It's good for that. Let's see if we can find another yellow flower. Let me see if I can find another yellow flower to confirm what I'm saying. I'm at Kibbutz Kahai Eco Village, and basically we are going to be putting in some herbs so that it would have been easier for me to do this. So I'm trying to get another yellow flower. And yellow flower, most yellow flower plants are also good for diabetes. It's also good to cleanse the blood. So if the plant was dry, or if the plant came as a powder, you wouldn't know that. You have to work with what is told to you without understanding why it was told to you. So I want to teach you why. Always ask why questions, not the what questions. What questions give you limited answers? Why questions gives you deeper answers. I'm trying to find a yellow flower. Oh, there's one up here. There's one up here that doesn't have any flower on it. But this is, can I change the camera around? No? All right, this flower, it's not flowering now. But this flower, if you can see it, this plant, sensitive P. I want to use this to teach plant identification because this is it's called a sensitive P because when you touch it, it shuts up. Now, most persons who heard me saying that and seeing me touch it, oh, I know that plant. That's the Mimosa pudica. No, this is not the Mimosa pudica. It has pinnate leaves like the Mimosa pudica. It has pods like the Mimosa pudica, and it comes from the pea family. Let me show you a Mimosa pudica. And I remember what I'm doing. I'm looking for a yellow plant. Both of them are sensitive. They're very similar, but they are very different. Oh, guys, I am trying to find a yellow plant. So here's a Mimosa pudica, but I'm trying to find a Mimosa pudica that has flowers on it. Just bear with me. Trying to find a Mimosa pudica that has flowers on it. So again, what are the principles of learning how to determine the use of a plant is the use of sight. Oh, here's a Mimosa pudica. Here's a Mimosa pudica. So here's a Mimosa pudica with a flower. And I'm going to do a video showing you the flower of the Mimosa pudica. Shame a darling, shame lady. And the flower of the sensitive plant. So the structures look very similar, but there are differences. And so, again, even if I gave you a dry Mimosa pudica and a dry sensitive plant, you maybe wouldn't know the difference. All right? I went to the sensitive plant because the sensitive plant has a yellow flower. So it is very effective in treating urinary tract problems. Another principle of the doctrine of signature says that most plants that grow a red flower is good for the blood. So herbs like hibiscus, that was our traditional healers knew the benefits of. So again, these are general guidelines. So if it is that I was in a, and this has happened to me, if I was in a particular part of the world and I saw a yellow flower plant, even without knowing what the plant was, my natural predisposition would have been that this is a plant that's going to help the urinary tract system. So I have a basis to start my research, and I have a basis to start my study. If it was a flower plant with a red flower, then I would know that my initial predisposition, and as I said, all what I'm saying, there are exceptions, because there are other tools that you employ, and you're going to see, we're going to go into that. There are other tools that you use to narrow down and to more definitively know the use of a herb. So by looking at the flower, the color of the flower, I now know, oh, this plant is good for the urinary tract system. This plant is good for the blood. Most plants that grow a purple flower, like the Mimosa pudica, and many other plants that grow purple flower are rich in iron, and they're very good and they're also very good for the liver. So this is the system that our ancestors used to determine the medicinal use of a plant. Then there was also where the plant grew, where the plant was growing. So the Doctrine of Signature says that, for example, most plants that grow in rocks or that grow in stony soil is good for the nervous system, or it is good for the bones. All right, musculoskeletal system. Sorry. So most plants that grow on rocky soil, and most of these plants tend to be vines. And then I say we can go into the chemicals. Why is this so? The use of saponins. What are saponins? What do saponins do on the tissue? So our ancestors didn't have the tools to identify chemicals, so they had to use what they had, which was their five senses. All right. So the Doctrine of Signature says that so all of what I'm saying, you can write it down, and then what you can do to verify what I'm saying, because I don't want to tell you what, I want to tell you why. All right. So what I'm saying to you, you can write it down, and then you can go and find some herbs. So next week, because I think I'm really enjoying this. Next week, I want, when I come on or on the chat, I want you to find 5 herbs that grow a yellow flower. 5 herbs that grow a yellow flower. And then I want you to look up the medicinal uses. And then I want you to find 5 herbs that have red flowers. And then I want you to go and look up the medicinal uses, because any truth, all truth should be verifiable. I don't want to tell you what. I don't want to join the list of telling you what. I want you to learn why. So in your yard, you're going to go around your yard now, and you're going to begin to look at, see if you can identify how much flowers you can identify with a yellow flower. If you don't know the plant, then I want you to send me a picture of the plant, and I'm going to put my WhatsApp number on the chat for you to send me the plant, and I'll help you to ID the plant so that you can then go and research the plant to find out the medicinal uses of that plant. But in the long term, I'm going to teach you all of this. So where were we? So most yellow flowers is good for the urinary tract system. Most plants with a red flower is good for the blood. Most herbs that grow on rocky soil is good for the is good for the musculoskeletal system. Here's another point. Most herbs that grow thorn, most herbs that have a thorn on it is good for pain. Most herbs that grow thorn is usually good for pain. So now you have some homework for next week. So I want you to look up 5 herbs that grow yellow flower, 5 herbs that grow a red flower and their medicinal uses, want to see if while looking through the medicinal uses, you find that it's good for the blood, or it's good for the blood purifier. 5 herbs that love to grow in rocky soil. And with that, most of the herbs that grow in rocky soil, by the way, tend to be vines. Most herbs that grow as vines is really good for the nervous system. So 5 assignments I'm giving you. 5 herbs that grow yellow flowers and their medicinal uses. 5 herbs that grow red flowers and their medicinal uses. 5 herbs that grow thorn and their medicinal uses. 5 herbs that love rocky soil and their medicinal uses. And what is it? 5 herbs that grow purple flower and their medicinal uses. I'm going to come off the Doctrine of Signature, because that was one of the tools that were used to determine the medicinal uses of plants. All right. So we're going to go, and so what you're going to realize is that you're going to start to develop a site relationship. When we talk about relationship, traditional herbers had a relationship with herbs. Oh, Western medicine teach herbology now. It's you send abroad, you buy some powder, or you send abroad and you buy some dark dehydrated herb. As I said, if that's what you have to work with, I'm not knocking that, because that's what I had to work with for a time. But what happens when you can't ship? What happens when you can't order? How do you know the potency of the herb? You know, how do you verify the maturity of the herb and all of those stuff? So how I teach is I teach from not the what perspective, I teach from the why. I want you to develop a relationship, and most importantly, I want you to be able to verify for yourself, not just what I said. And I also want the intuitive, natural healing ability in you to begin to speak to you. Because most of us, all of us, have a natural, because we have a natural innate ability to defend ourselves. We also have a natural innate ability to heal ourselves. Sometimes when we lack certain vitamins, then the body is going to respond by us developing a thirst, or by us developing a desire for particular minerals or particular foods. What the body is seeking and searching for is the mineral, because our body has intelligence. So let me go into today what I want to go into. So in today's video, I want to go into something that my wife sometimes, like yesterday I was going out and I ate a mushroom and she said, "Oh, you love TSO?" But that's what the animals do. Another thing that our ancestors did, by the way, was they observed the animals around them and they looked at what the animals tasted. They looked at what the animals ate. And that was a way in which they also developed an affinity and a knowledge of what was edible and what wasn't edible. And of course, what I'm going to do is I would encourage you to do it without somebody guiding you, and I would encourage you to do it without an experienced person holding your hand and walking through. Even though, you know, you would have to go out on a limb for you to get to hurt yourself. But today, what we're going to be doing is tasting. A lot of persons don't love to taste. And that is what we are going to be doing. We are going to be tasting herbs. I don't know if I can I give you that as additional homework? Yeah? Can I give you that additional homework? So I'm going to go through now and I'm going to taste. But before we taste, I want to lay the foundation by sharing with you what is it that you're tasting for. What are you trying to taste for? Now, there are about 12 distinct tastes and experiences that you will get from a plant. Let me say that again. So there are about 12 distinct tastes and 12 distinct experiences that you will get from a plant. And all of these 12 tastes and experiences will communicate to you something about the healing property of that plant. Because when you taste something, that taste is the result of chemicals. And those chemicals are medicinals. And in high doses, poison. Hey, Robert, so you're doing? I see you're enjoying this. Oh man, I'm enjoying it as well. I hope you're taking your notes for your assignment. I'm looking out to see you next week. And I'm gonna do this on a Sunday, by the way. I'm gonna do this on a Sunday. Just before I go harvesting my herbs. So there are 12 distinct tastes and experiences that you will acquire from a herb. And I want to share with you what those 12 experiences. I'm not going to go into details. If you do the class, if you do the course, then I will go into them, because I don't want to be long and boring and lecture. I want this to be an experiential, lively encounter that makes sense to you. So, but I'm going to give you the groundwork. So the first experience that you will have when you when you taste a herb are bitter experiences. So some herbs are bitter, all right? And there are chemicals that are responsible for the bitter that you have. Then some herbs are salty. And all of these tastes, there are many compounds and chemicals that cause it. And when we go into the pharmacology of herb, that is what we do to help you to explain what this herb does or why it does that. Then there's what we call aromatic experience, a flavorful aromatic. And when I talk about aromatic, I'm talking about herbs like peppermint. When you taste peppermint, you taste an aroma. When you taste rosemary, you taste an aroma. When you taste oregano, you taste an aroma. When you taste fennel or ginger, you taste an aroma. Those are aromatic herbs. Now, the aroma that you taste is because of certain chemicals. And those chemicals have medicinal properties. All right? So, as I said, I don't want to overwhelm you. So, I'm going to go through the 12 of them, and today we're going to focus on one. All right? So, I'm going to go through 12, and we're going to focus on one. So, I'm going through the 12 because I want you to have a basis, a reference point as to what you're tasting for. All right, so I'm gonna give you 12 experiences that you will get from the herb, so that you have a reference point when you go and taste. All right, so the first one is let me start with pungent. What is a pungent taste? A pungent is a warming, burning taste, and a very good example of a herb that has a pungent experience and taste is pepper. When you taste pepper, pepper is pungent, it's hot. And there are many herbs that have that pungent attribute. As I said, there's cayenne pepper, there is horseradish, there is clove, there is ginger, there is this herb, it's grown a lot in Christiana. It's grown high altitude, it's called, oh my gosh, it's mustard, all right, mustard. When you begin to communicate with herb, and when you begin to understand these tastes and experiences, I'll help you to translate that into medicinal benefits. These tastes and experiences are the results of chemicals. And these chemicals have certain reaction or actions on the body. All right, so the first one is pungent. Then after pungent, then there's aromatic. And aromatic is just below pungent, because some aromatic also may tend to have a slight pungent characteristic. So let me give you an example of a small pungent herb that you can experience. Aromatic herb. So there is wild basil. Wild basil is an aromatic. Ginger is an aromatic, but ginger is an aromatic with a slight pungency, burning to it. All right? So there are chemicals that cause that. All right? So there are aromatics. And by the way, I'm going to be looking at aromatic in today's video. I'm going to be featuring some herbs that are aromatic and helping you to identify some one family of aromatic herb, because within aromatic herbs there are many families, and I can tell you the family of herbs that we're going to look on is mints, because mints is one of the family from the aromatic group that I want to help you to identify. All right, so there is, we talk about pungent, which is the hot herbs, then we talk about the aromatic, then we talk about the bitter herbs. And the bitter herbs tend to have a detoxifying effect. Pungent herbs and aromatic herbs tend to have a stimulating effect. So if you take pungent herbs or aromatic herbs, they bring fire in the body. Right? They're usually responsible for driving out cold and mucus and so on. And that's there I go. Don't want to give you too much information. So I want to list the taste. So there is aromatic, pungent, then there's bitters, then there are salty. So when you taste the herb, that's what you want to look for. Was this herb pungent? Was it pungent and aromatic? Was it more aromatic? Was it bitter? Was it bitter and aromatic, right? So that's what you look for. Was it salty? Was the herb sour? Was the herb astringent? All right, and astringent is a herb that when you taste it, it's like it dries up all the water in your mouth. It's like it's stiny. For those of you who would know, like a guava leaf. When you bite a guava leaf, it's like it dries up the water in your mouth. All right, that's an example of an astringent herb, and there are many barks out there that are like that. And astringent herbs help with stopping internal bleeding and the release of mucus and cold and so on. As I said, I'll go into each of them. I want to spend time on one, and then I'm going to show you my greenhouse. I'm going to shut up, all right? Then we have mucilaginous herbs. Mucilaginous herbs are herbs that are slimy. Was this herb slimy? Was this herb slippery? Then you have herbs that are sweet, and then outside of that, now you will have a blend of taste. So you will have oily. Was this herb oily? All right. So let me go through them again and list them. So the first one was pungent. Pungent herbs are hot herbs. Then just below pungent herbs, you have aromatic herbs, which are herbs that are more flavorful than they are spicy or hot. Then you have bitter herbs. These are herbs that are, oh my goodness, they are extremely bitter. And then right below bitter herbs, you have simple bitters. These are herbs that are bitter but are tolerable. All right. There are chemicals to that. Then we have astringent herbs. These are herbs that you will taste, and the minute you taste them, it's like it dries up all the water in your mouth. Then we have sour herbs. These are herbs that when you taste them, your mouth begins to spring water. So sour herbs tend to function opposite to astringent herbs. Then you have oily herbs. These are herbs that when you taste them, they're full of oil and fats. Then you have herbs that are slimy, slippery, mucilaginous. Then you have herbs that are sweet, and then you have herbs that are salty. So I've given you a basic reference point of what to look for when you're tasting the herbs. Right? So it's building a relationship. So your homework so far is to we're using the tools that our ancestors used. So they use colors, sight. So we move from sight now, and we have gone into tasting. And tasting is very powerful because when you taste and experience, I'm going to spend some time on tasting, and then I'm going to spend some time on, where the herb grows. A lot of that has to do with how to determine the medicinal use of the herbs. And of course, I'm not going to deep into the chemicals because that's kind of like for persons who are going to go into this seriously. So if you're going to do the course, it starts, registration is still open. It's $70 to register. It's $100 US per month. The classes are only on Sundays. We only do Sunday evening classes. Throughout the week, you get homework and assignments, and we have videos and assignments that you will follow through. I want it to be of such where persons can can do the course while they're still working or doing the course while they're doing their day-to-day activity. Orientation is the 8th of January, and class starts on the 15th. All right, so I'm trying to get more persons in. I'm trying to get some persons from Jamaica. The goal is to not just to teach you, but to help you to practice. My goal is to, on my website, is to list you. So my goal is not only to teach you, it's to mentor you into practicing. So my workload can go down. I can refer persons in Montego Bay to that person, can recommend persons to Falmouth, I can persons to Kingston, I can recommend persons to Ocho Rios, I can recommend persons in Florida, I can recommend persons in Trinidad, I can recommend persons in the Bahamas. That's my goal. But it is to equip you with a model that you can verify for yourself, but you can work with. All right, so that's what you're going to be tasting for. So in today's video, I want to look on aromatic herbs. And from the aromatic herbs, I want to look at herbs in the mint family. So I'm gonna go now because I want to show you. So how do you identify mints? Mints are a very broad family of herbs. And as I said in my previous video, you don't need to know a lot of herbs to be an effective practitioner. You don't need. What you need to know, so you don't need to know a lot of herbs, but you need to know a lot about the herbs that you work with. All right? You don't need to know a lot of herbs in order to be a good practitioner, but you need to know a lot about the herbs that you work with. In other words, you have to have a very good relationship with the list of herbs that you're working with. So if you're working with 20, 25, 30, or 40 herbs, then you can have a casual relationship with those herbs. You need to have an intimate relationship and working knowledge with those herbs. And I can tell you, any herbalist works with a very limited amount of herbs. I have a vast knowledge of Jamaican herbs, but that is to give me the option of substitutes, right? So I know a lot of Jamaican herbs, but that is only to give me substitutes. So if I was in Trelawney and I needed to formulate a medicine, I didn't have a particular herb that is from my intimate knowledge group, then I can go in the list, my extensive list, and I can pop out a herb that is more common in that area. Because what you'll also find is that even though we're in Jamaica, you won't find every herb all over Jamaica. You're going to find that there are certain herbs that grow dominantly in an area than in other areas, right? Right. So that is the reason why it's good to have a knowledge and be able to identify the medicinal use of a herb. So, for example, I'm in Portmore, and somebody say, "Yo, doc, I have a kidney stone." And in my intimate knowledge of herbs, a kidney stone would be Chancapiedra. It would be herbs like Shema Lady, but there's none there. Immediately, I'm going to start to look for herbs with yellow plants, yellow flowers. That's where my reference point is. I'm going to look for herbs with yellow flowers. And if I find herbs with yellow flowers, then I'm going to begin to look at the leaf structure, the flower structure, and then I'm going to identify it. Then after I identify it, I'm going to research. Since I know it, but I don't have an intimate knowledge of its use and its contraindication. So that is how basically traditional practitioners would use their knowledge. And as I said, there's an important component to practicing, which is called energetics, which is the energy, the frequency that a herb emanates, which is critical, which is like maybe one of the most critical component to practicing that I'm not going to go into today. So I'm going to be looking at the mints. And I made the point because in the whole world of herbs, there are 8 families. There are 8 families of herb that if you know how to identify and if you build a relationship with those 8 families of herbs, they are the biggest families within the herb kingdom. So if you know how to identify herbs from those 8 families, it will allow you to potentially know the medicinal uses of over 300,000 herbs. So you don't need to know the names of over 300,000 herbs to know the medicinal uses of over 300,000 herbs. as I just said to you, you can, if you know what to look for, you can almost go into any context and begin applying the knowledge, building relationship, and acquiring raw material to go to work right away. All right. So mint, I'm going to focus on the mint. So mints are from the aromatic family, and mints usually have square stems, opposite leaves, and they are usually aromatic. Square stems, opposite leaves, usually aromatic. So this is going to be your 6th assignment. So I want you to go in your surrounding, and I want you to find as many square stem, opposite leaves, aromatic herbs you can find. There are some exceptions, but we'll deal with those exceptions as they come along. So let us see if we can go on our herb walk. Most of the property here has been cleaned, so I won't find a lot of herbs here. I'm gonna find those herbs on the path coming up, which means I'm moving, which means I hope this doesn't affect my signal. Hope this doesn't affect my signal. And I'm in search of herbs that have square stems, opposite leaves, and are aromatic in flavor. All right, so I'm traveling. I'm getting ready to put out this season. In January, I'm getting ready to start my Herbally Speaking season 6 of Herbally Speaking. So I'm putting out new herbs come January. So I wanted to look out for that. All right, and I see one. All right. Let me just help assist me. Sorry for picking you like that, but I want you to assist me. I'm gonna go back up the hill. I don't know what happened. If I lost feed. I don't know what happened, guys, but I found I don't know what's happening, but my screen has frozen. And this is one of the things with technology. I don't know, because I just moved.